Hey, good morning, everybody. It is Wednesday, June 4th. This is a special meeting of the Darien Board of Education Curriculum Committee. This is our last one of the year. So thank you, everybody, for your hard work throughout the year, and we'll learn what you're going to do over the summer a little bit, I would think. We have two things on the agenda: the World Language Stamp Proficiency Assessment and our spring curriculum updates. So I will turn it over to Dr. Fedigan, and we will have our next meeting in September at a date TBD.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Sarah. Good morning, everyone. We'll start today with our update on K-12 world language. It wasn't too long ago that we did gather at this table for a meeting with Scott Webster to provide an overall update on K-12 world languages. And one of the things that we were looking at as a team this past year is the SNAMP assessment. And we know that that's important, and it's one of the things that we use also in determining seal of biliteracy. And really, it's been a very useful tool at the secondary level at the high school. However, at the middle school, we really have done some analysis and want to make a recommendation for how we'll move forward with more appropriately assessing our middle school learners in grades 6 through 8. So I'll turn it over to Scott Webster at this point. He'll give a very brief overview of the assessment in case you don't have it readily at your fingertips, or anyone who's watching at home to remember exactly what that assessment is. For a proficiency assessment. And he also has brought with him one of our colleagues from MMS, one of our French teachers, who will explain to you again from her firsthand perspective how she has used the assessment and how other assessments have been more useful to her in measuring our students' progress as we're preparing them to shift to the high school. So Mr. Webster, I'll turn it over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity for letting us chat more about assessments as our follow-up to our visit with you in January. As we previously shared, we assess 4 skill areas using a variety of methods, including debates, Socratic discussions, and authentic project-based learning. And additionally, we measure proficiency through the STAMP exam at DHS, as Dr. Fedigan said, which is one of the ways that students may qualify for the seal of biliteracy. The other way is through scoring a 3 on their AP language exams. 8th graders also take the STAMP, and today we'd like to share insights on its effectiveness at that level. What is STAMP? It's standards-based measurement of proficiency. And it is an online adaptive assessment that measures language proficiency and student growth, and is one of the most popular exams used by schools to qualify students for the seal of biliteracy, including in our DIRG. And it adjusts to individual skill levels, promoting real-world language use, and students can complete it at their own pace. This assessment was adopted by Darien in 2018 at both DHS and MMS, and its purpose at MMS was to determine where students land on the actual proficiency spectrum, and it was also intended to inform 9th grade placement decisions, but in practice this has not been effectively implemented due to the timing of the testing. After thoughtful review, we've concluded that the best approach for students moving forward is to retain STAMP at DHS while phasing it out at MMS and focusing on other assessments. Here are a few takeaways from our research and discussions. After 8 years of testing at MMS, the results have confirmed our expectations of students' language proficiency levels, which are novice high/intermediate low, which are where students should be in their skill development journey. So we are content with this discovery, and the test has served its purpose in this respect. Each test costs about $23 per student and takes an average of 2 to 3 weeks to administer at MMS. Including practice and makeups, which is disruptive to the curriculum in that it limits valuable instructional time. We actually already have a more meaningful and accurate system in place to assess students' skill sets, which we'll get to in a minute. 8th graders also participate in multiple standardized assessments, including NGSS, AIMS-Web, SBAC, and DRP, which limit instructional time. And as you may know, recognizing this concern, the state of Connecticut recently audited schools to assess the frequency of these types of assessments in an effort to encourage a move toward a more balanced and effective approach to student evaluation. As we reflect on language assessment and placement practices, we'd like to share some additional points. A student's coursework, classroom performance, participation, and teacher recommendations provide a more comprehensive view of their abilities than a single test. Students also enter with diverse backgrounds. Some are heritage speakers, while others may have strong grammar skills but limited speaking ability. So given these variations, a single test may not fully reflect their proficiency. We believe that a more holistic approach, combining teacher input, classroom performance, and proficiency assessments over time, typically leads to a better placement decision. Quarterly in-house benchmark assessments aligned with actable rubrics offer meaningful insight into students' language proficiency. These reflect best practices that we have actually been implementing for many years at each grade level and in all 3 languages. I'd like to introduce Kathy Chaffee, who will be able to provide some more insight into these assessments. She's an 8th grade teacher, and she's been using, and 7th grade, sorry. She's been using the stamp for several years, so she can give some more detailed information for you.
So we administer quarterly assessments. They're known as integrated performance assessments. And they show growth over time. We use rubrics associated with national standards. And if we could see the example. This is an example of a writing prompt that we use in French. Students are charged with writing about a trip they've taken in the past. So they must use the passé composé verb tense and cover this set of questions, including the mode of transportation and the time of year. So they use both the present tense and the past tense. So it's a timeline kind of thing. This is one component of the rubric called language control, which focuses on grammar, vocabulary, and ease of expression. And these rubrics align with the national ACTFL standards. And this is an example of the student writing for this IPA. And this is an example of the French speaking assessment. So students engage in conversation to exchange information using an authentic text, an article about travel to Algeria as a basis. And they must incorporate relevant details such as the weather and appropriate clothing for the trip. We cover descriptions of clothing with the materials and, the green silk polka dot skirt that I'm going to pack, that kind of thing, so that they have all the tools that they can use to describe their clothing and the weather and what they plan to do. So then they will also be using the near future tense so that we cover all 3 of on the timeline. And this is one of the components of the speaking assessment rubric is called language functions. And it evaluates the ability to hold a conversation in the target language in a spontaneous manner. And they do this in front of the teachers so that we are there listening to them. We do practice before they take the assessment so that they do little practice conversations. And they're told to make sure that they ask questions because in a conversation, you tend to have questions instead of just saying, I'm bringing my green skirt. Okay. So they really get the practice of really having a conversation with each other. These are the type of assessments that already happen on a quarterly basis. And over time, it paints a clear picture of the students' abilities in the 4 skill areas. And it helps to inform student language placement for 9th grade. We continually refine these assessments. Actually, we are working on refining these assessments as our 3-year goal. So we're doing, we started with 8th grade. Next year, we're doing 7th, and then we're doing 6th so that they all kind of align with each other. They look similar. The students will know what this is when they are handed the IPA, so they have more confidence in taking them as they go along through the years. And we refine them to align with effective teaching and learning practices. And it offers a more comprehensive measure than STAMP. And I have the great fortune of teaching both 7th and 8th grade. So I really do get to see their growth over time. So I really like the fact that I can teach both grades. Some additional things that I just want to mention about STAMP. I've administered the test for 5 years. And we spend 2 to 3 weeks away from the curriculum so that they can practice going online. They have practice questions. It takes time to do the assessments, and then we have students who have to do makeup, so we have to factor that in. So it takes about 3 weeks. The question they always ask is, will this go in Aspen? And it really does not contribute in any way to their grade. So sometimes they don't take it as seriously as they should because it doesn't really reflect in their grade. It is expensive. The test administration can be difficult. All 3 languages take it at the same time. So there's the issue of where to have everybody taking the test, especially the speaking. I've been in the auditorium with a large Spanish class, and you can pick up other languages in the discussions. So I've had to send kids in the hallway so that they can actually hear and be heard better. And that does affect the scoring in STEM. The equipment can be faulty, so sometimes the headphones won't work, and then it's a scramble for trying to find something that has a microphone, where they can hear things. I've had students score zeros on the speaking because it didn't record what they were saying. The data is too late to use for placement for 9th grade. So one of the reasons that was mentioned to administer STAMP, we really can't use because we've already made the recommendations before we get the results back. What they test doesn't necessarily correspond to the curriculum, so sometimes the students don't have the vocabulary that they need in order to write or speak about the topic given, where they can with the IPAs because we've studied what they're talking about. With all that said, the scores that the students receive really do correspond with how they receive their grades in class. So they really are at the high novice or low intermediate. And it kind of confirms what we're seeing in class. The question is, do we need to spend the money to confirm what we already know? I don't know. If we had the weeks back, we could actually add a little bit more to the units. There are a lot of things that I'd like to do that I just don't have time to do. Right now, I experimented with Book Creator. We don't have a language lab. So what I've done is assigned partners, and they can actually record on Book Creator and someone at another location. So if it's homework, they can be at their own homes, and the person can wait a couple of seconds and hear what that one person said, and then they can respond so they can have a conversation back and forth. It takes some planning on my part. I have to create all the groups and the books and the assignments. And if I had more time, I could do more of that, and they could actually have real conversations with each other. So it would be nice to have some of that time back so we could do more development of those kind of things. The other thing is with our assessments, for instance, the last assessment that we just gave to our 8th grade, they actually include research, which STAMP doesn't ask them to do, and interactive speaking, which STAMP does not have. They just have them, they give a prompt and then they just have to respond. Where language is communication, communication is having conversations. So we'd like to develop that more. And that's what I have to say. So thank you.
Thank you for being here. I'll open it up for conversation. I think my first takeaway is that it sounds like our assessments are holistic in nature and comprehensive in nature, and it is a better judge of how the children are doing. So to me, it makes sense not to have these 2 to 3 weeks, but I would like to know, is there anything missing that you might want to incorporate? If we don't go with STAMP, is there anything that you want to add or change so that you can get some data that you may not already be receiving?
I don't think so. I think, again, like we talked about, we do these assessments in all 4 skill areas at each quarter. So we are getting a very comprehensive view of students' abilities and their proficiency levels. And then we get to see the growth from August through June. And if you're lucky, over 2 years, even with some teachers.
Thank you. I wanted to say to you that I really appreciate the way that you laid out the materials in terms of why not stamp. That was like very easy to understand into like why it was useful before and how maybe it's not as necessary anymore. And I really liked the graphics. I did want to ask though, Kathy, some of the deficiencies that you outlined that can be problematic in the administration, if we're keeping that at the high school, how do we mitigate those factors in terms of microphones and background noise and that?
You mean with the other types of assessments?
No, I'm just saying that you highlighted a few of the problems with STAMP at the middle school and great, but we're still keeping it at the high school. So
Right.
how at the high school are we
Oh, how's it
solving for
different?
some of those issues?
Sorry. We're fortunate to have 2 language labs at the high school. So when we do the testing there, kids are at their own individual perils. And so it really, there are no issues with speaking and extra noise.
Thank you.
And thank you. I think this was a great presentation. I have a question more about Mandarin, since the middle school Mandarin courses are new. How are you using 8th grade testing for 9th grade placement in Mandarin? Because we don't currently have an accelerated option in 9th or 10th grade, or like we do for Spanish. So I'm just curious how that would work.
Right. So we're lucky to see the first crew of rising 9th graders with 3 years of Mandarin under their belt. And the teacher there is also doing these quarterly assessments. So we're getting a really good picture of where kids are in their proficiency levels, and that informs placement and our numbers have increased, which is exciting to see.
What is the anticipated 9th grade placement for high school with this current group that have had 3 years at this point?
We have two levels, 2 sections of level 1 and 2 of level 2, so that has grown.
So that's new for
That's
9th grade.
new.
that
And
they
then
would-
next year we'll have 5 sections of Mandarin at MMS, which we haven't had that before. So
Okay,
that's exciting.
great. And I know that, so, and then at DHS, then ultimately at some point, we would potentially think about what we would offer for seniors, right?
Yes,
which would
great
be
question.
new
We
and-
we
okay.
already have the proposal ready to go for
Great.
AP Mandarin that will
Thank you.
launch next
Thank you.
year for the following year.
Can you just go back to the history of why in 2018, I don't know if you were involved in that, probably not. So why was it chosen? And is there any, I would just love to understand the history of why it was instituted in the first place.
Yeah, great question. I wasn't here then, but I do have data from our neighboring districts, and every district does offer some kind of testing, and it's a great way to have any kind of testing is a really solid way to go systemically in terms of tracking growth over time. Some districts have phased out STAMP or Apple, which is the other one, the other assessment, like Westport, for example. They phased it out a few years ago because of budgetary challenges as well as time. And they're getting 45% of the senior class earning the seal of biliteracy. We had 43, so we're just below that. So they do have another kind of assessment. They're in-house assessments, which are similar to the ones that we do. And so they are performing very successfully with those measures in place still. So all the area districts do have some kind of assessment in place. Some are proficiency based and cost money, and others are in-house.
If I can just add one thing to that, while I also was not here in 2018, I do understand that part of the rationale was to support placement for students as they move from the middle school to the 9th grade. And also, because it's a standardized measure, if we're thinking about offering that measure, MMS and DHS grades 6 through 12, you have that standardized articulation throughout. But we've adjusted for that because of the internal curriculum-based measures that we use. And Kathy was speaking about that before, how we're really aligning those to the curriculum and looking at the articulation of each grade level with a progression of language skills.
What's the total cost savings by removing stamp from the middle school?
So this, yeah,
About
it's about
$6,000.
6,000. It's 2290 per test. We had 308 students testing in eighth grade this year. So I
Was
think
that built into the next year's budget?
it is in the budget for, but yeah, just in case.
That's all right, go ahead.
Just a quick one. In listening, it's a good presentation and good conversation. Just in listening to you, it sounds like one of the main reasons why the test was in place was for that placement. But listening to you, it sounds like it's not even being used for that. So I was trying to think like, well, what is this actually being used for? I mean, maybe prep for future stamp tests is the only thing I can think of, but it sounds like you're saying that you could do other testing that would.
Exactly. That's a
Override
great
that.
question. So at the high school, the stamp is for seal by literacy, but it's also a proficiency test. It's really, it's a snapshot in time of a student's 4 skill areas and what they're able to do without really practicing or rehearsing for it. So it's, yeah, it did serve its purpose. And then it showed that, hey, kids are where they're supposed to be in their development of language study. Yeah, and which also aligns with our area districts.
Amy, what do you need from us? Anything or just
No, I just, you'll always hear me talk about curriculum instruction, assessment, and professional learning and how all of these things match. So when Scott, was very new in his role, being a teacher in district and working in the department, he knew that there was this, concern with the stamp assessment at the middle school, not really having the return on investment. It is actually, we budgeted, closer to $7,000 for this because of a 10% increase year over year. And his initial reaction was, let's just not do the stamp this year in 24-25. And we talked about how important it is from a leadership perspective and a system perspective to really do a very thorough analysis. And I'm really grateful that the department did just that so that they were able to confirm that we do have these curriculum-based measures and it was not a hasty decision. I also know how important it is though for us to be very clear with you as the board and the public in general, our parents, how we're connecting curriculum to our instructional practices and our assessment methods. So this was really informative. It's a wise financial decision, obviously for us as an administration and a board to move in this direction, but it's also a very wise instructional decision for us to move in this way.
okay?
Thank you very much. To a much lesser degree, much lesser degree, some of these assessments from professional organizations, so on, we're also part of an advocacy for continuing to support languages and so on and so forth. And I think there's no doubt that we actually do that and then some. So,
All right. Well, thank you both for being here.
Thank you so much.
Kathy, thank you so
you,
much. And I know
Kathy.
Kathy's going back to her 7th and 8th grade students today.
We appreciate you being here. Thanks so much.
Au revoir. So if it's okay with you, board members, we'll cruise right
Yeah,
into the
please.
second presentation. Thank you so much, Scott. We're not joined by every member of our team, of our curriculum and instruction team, because as you can imagine, we're wrapping up with end of year department meetings, end of year goal meetings, and closing out the work of the department and also ensuring that our kids are ready to end the year in a strong way. So we have representation from several of our departments. We have Tim McGuire for instructional technology, Christian Dockham for science, Ronnie Rogay for mathematics, Greg Darren for technology, and Scott Webster will stay with us for world language. And I can support some of the conversation for some of the other subject areas. Historically, in the past, I've noticed in my tenure in Darien, we've talked about curriculum priorities in the spring and also in the fall. I do think it's important to do that because the pace of curriculum work happens throughout the year. And so at this point today, we can provide an update for the work that's been accomplished with the FY25 budget. Again, to support curriculum revision, curriculum writing, instructional practices, assessment methods, and professional learning. It's also important to note that a significant portion of curriculum writing in districts tends to fall in the month of June. We've talked about this before. I don't think it's best practice to really push everything into a 4-week period. So as a department, we've worked really hard and will continue to work on pacing curriculum work, revision and writing throughout the year so that we can really progress monitor our own work. I think the curriculum comes out much more higher quality when we do that. And curriculum writing is really an exercise of professional learning. So it's important for that to be ongoing and embedded throughout the year. The way that the slide deck is prepared, has an outline of the curricular updates for each of the department areas. We're not going to go through each of those, but that's really meant as just a reference for the board and the general public to know what we've accomplished as far as each of the courses, and with each course, what stage of the curriculum is written, whether it's stage 1, stage 2, or stage 3. And then what we'll also do is take some time to talk about the highlights and achievements of each of the departments, which we're proud of. We'll also outline a little bit the work moving ahead. So we'll be very busy in the month of June, finishing up FY25, and then we quickly transition July 1 into our curriculum projects for the year ahead. And that will support, again, our intentions for professional learning as we open the new school year. Just a quick reminder for anyone who needs one or for who is new and just watching this now, we do have a 7-year curriculum revision cycle. We've talked about the fact that curriculum writing must be dynamic. It is, again, an exercise of professional learning. It helps us to ensure that we're standards aligned and consistent in our practice throughout the system across 5 elementary schools, and as we articulate from the elementary to the secondary level, middle school and high school. At the center of our curriculum is not only the standards that we're aligning to, but also those tenets of the vision of the graduate. And I was reading an article recently that talked about, content standards just aren't enough. We can't send kids out into the world just with static knowledge. Content standards are not enough. Our children need to be able to apply, problem solve, think critically, all of those other skills and attributes that are a part of, are embedded within the vision of the graduate. As a quick reminder, stage 1 is the part of the curriculum writing where we're talking about those standards, those long-term transfer goals, the essential enduring understandings, essential questions, knowledge, and skills for the unit. So that's like the big picture idea. What do we want a child to be able to know and be able to do as a result of their experience in a course or a unit within a course? Stage 2 is where we talk about more of those daily activities and those tasks, those thinking, those opportunities that allow students to apply their learning. And stage 3 is really how we measure, how did the students do? And then, when we see how they've made progress or along the mastery of the progression of skills that we're looking for, what do we do when we see that there's a gap? There should be contingency plans in there. We have a continued commitment to ensuring that we're writing not only with the UBD framework in mind, but with the tenets of universal design for learning. That is admittedly a lot of work that we still need to do in district. It's a big lift for us when we think about general education and special education together, ensuring that everyone has a clear understanding of what universal design for learning is to ensure that our curriculum is accessible for all of our students. So one of the things that we've asked our partners at EduPlanet to do is to ensure that, for example, the standards that are related to CAS, which is the organization that primarily is responsible for the UDL standards, are embedded into the platform so that we can start to signal those out for our staff and so that they can more readily see how they can make the curriculum accessible for every kid in each of our classes. Just as a reminder, I know the initial budget season may seem like it was a long time ago, but I want to remind everybody that we set as a priority for our new budget cycle for FY26 an expansion of EduPlanet. And one of the reasons why we did that is it's incredibly important for every staff member, every leader, every administrator, and every teacher to be able to access the curriculum. Prior to this expansion, only the curriculum writers had access. And that's problematic, right? We don't want to have curriculum sitting on a shelf because that's old and expired. Part of the allure of EduPlanet is ensuring that the curriculum is current and relevant and that everybody's actually literally on the same page. So that was one of the reasons. The other piece is we'll have more opportunity for professional learning to be systematic about our approach with how we write curriculum, how we use the UBD framework, and they've customized some really, I guess, some parts of their platform for us for UDL. So there will be some sessions that we can use with our staff to support our staff's understanding of UDL as a curricular approach and also how to support with instructional practice. I'm really very grateful that this is something that the board has invested in, because when we think about work at the student level, the teacher level, classroom, school, and district, this EduPlanet platform is something that contributes to us working as a system. So that's something that I'm really grateful that we've actually taken, to the full extreme of where we need to with this investment. And we'll continue to be writing our curriculum. And actually, yesterday, I must have sent Scott, I'll apologize again, probably 15 text messages and emails about different curricular documents in the world language department. But it's a way to ensure that our eyes are on it, that it's accurate. And again, also that our stakeholders, parents, it's very important for our parents to be able to see what are the curricular standards, resources that are being used. And all of that is published through Stage 1. So here's the curriculum blueprint. I won't take you through this now, but you have seen before that when you go into our website, when you go into the teaching and learning tab, there is a tab for district curriculum, and you can click on any part of this blueprint to go into a department and into a course and access the curriculum as it's being published. Anything that has not been written into Stage 1 UBD format yet still lives on our website because of course it takes time to revise the curricular units as we go. And you know that we have a set plan and calendar for doing so that's very systemic. So I won't go through each of these. However, each department chair and coordinator and director has prepared a chart which will show at the middle school and high school level, 6-12, what we've completed with the 24-25 work and with the FY25 budget to date. Again, some of our work will be continued toward completion throughout the month of June. It's really important. I think this level of detail is quite impressive, and I want to express my gratitude to this team. They know precisely where we are with every single course and every single unit in its development, whether it's Stage 1, the initial goals, Stage 2, more the daily learning activities, or Stage 3, the actual assessments. Another benefit to this EduPlanet is exactly what Kathy was referring to before, being a 7th and 8th grade teacher. The teachers in 6th grade and those teachers in grades 9 through 12 can also, at their fingertips, have readily accessible what the curriculum looks like, for the kids coming before them and where they're sending the kids to next. So again, I won't go through all of these, but for your reference, you also know that we have our curriculum tracker, progress tracker, where we can talk about the percentages of each course that are completed and with what degree, whether it's the overview, Stage 1, Stage 2, or Stage 3. So these are there for the board and for the rest of our Darien Public Schools community for each and every department. I will also say that we were behind with health education. So we made it a priority this year. Our health documents for health education grades 9 through 12 are all published on EduPlanet. And by middle school will be completed probably by the end of June. So that was a subject area that we definitely wanted to have on EduPlanet on the blueprint for us. So at this time, I'll pass it to each of the department chairs. They'll talk about some high-level departmental achievements. They probably will have a summary statement about the curriculum work that they've accomplished this year and the work as we look toward the 25-26 school year. And I think, Ron, you're up first.
Thank you. I'm excited to share some of the highlights from this year in our math department. We really focused this slide on professional learning, student achievement, and community engagement, which supports our strategic plan in the district. First, in the area of professional learning and instructional innovation, we really focused on the co-taught model of math instruction this year with instructional rounds, an emphasis on deeper thinking, student discourse, and engagement. These efforts strengthened our team teaching practices and co-teaching practices actually in the building and our use of thinking classroom routines, just particularly in collaborative settings. We also explored AI tools with, I think I mentioned before when I met with you, the AI tools definitely focused on Desmos, which is now used on SBAC, SAT, ACT, and RAP exams. The student success and recognition, there's like just too much I can talk about to list, but we're really proud of what's happening in the math department, especially if we look at the top 4 APs. We have 100% of our students that pass, the majority earning perfect scores. In our DIRG, we have the most amount of students in AP courses in math. We just had the celebration last night of our Honor Society students, which was incredible just to see their achievements on where we are as a district in terms of math contests, but also incredible math modeling projects where they're showing how they use math in the real world. Incredible mathematicians just exist in Darien, and it's so exciting to celebrate them. They really did have a banner year. As a math team, we were the top scoring school in our division at the New England Association of Math Leagues competition, along with outstanding scores at the state level and in our DERG. Regarding community engagement, we really worked hard this year to kind of do a bridge between MMS and DHS. And our Mu Alpha Theta students went to MMS and did a little math modeling for color theorem, if we want to really nerd out, in terms of into 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade math classrooms. It was really just an amazing experience for those students to see the high schoolers, and they actually worked on a proof. That was fantastic. And also we started a new Pi Day tradition. Students built a Pi skyline where they engaged in interdisciplinary lessons, created visual math displays. We actually collected over 2,500 cans for local food bank, all through the lens of celebrating math in the month of March. So as we look ahead, we're really just excited to continue this great work and build on the momentum of the year.
Thanks, Ronnie.
Ronnie, can you just share with us maybe the most significant curricular accomplishment this year within the department and the focus for the year ahead for curriculum writing?
Our focus was, our foundation was really good in math in terms of stage 1. So our focus was really on stage 2 and stage 3 of the curriculum design, where our efforts were focused on the development of authentic performing tasks and thinking tasks that we, ones that spiral content, strengthen math retention, and deepen students' conceptual understanding of both MMS and DHS.
Can I just interject a minute there?
Yeah.
I just want to recognize Ronnie, everybody for being here, but she's underplaying a wee bit. That idea of the thinking classroom in mathematics has permeated the whole district. It's a perfect example of ground up curriculum, instructional practices, engagement. And now you're seeing it in elementary schools. Teachers are wanting to be involved in it. It results in kids being highly engaged and more engaged, and they're taking ownership for their learning. It just is, she didn't even mention it in one of the accomplishments there in terms of professionally. I would put that down personally, but thank you for your leadership in that, Professor.
Thank you.
Dr. Addy, may I
Yeah,
say
go ahead.
something to that? Just to thank Ronnie and the math department and the team, because also there's a real emphasis on differentiation and access. When Dr. Finnegan spoke earlier about UDL and being able to have that access for all students, that really is clear in all the mathematics classes for the accelerating learners and for the learners who still require support. So thank you for all that.
Thank you for the recognition, and it's a massive passion of mine.
And it clearly comes through.
Thank you.
Other questions about math? Oh, go ahead.
Are we going to talk about the curriculum writing, like have questions later for that, or
For mathematics?
just overall?
Yeah, we could do that at the end.
Okay.
I would just I would love to celebrate, find a way to celebrate all these accomplishments, because we don't hear about that as often, and it would be great to do that somehow.
I don't know how to click on the video, but you guys should watch.
All right, thank you, Ronnie.
Yeah.
All right, I will take the humanities. Next two departments, Kristen Connolly's and Dennis Cabrera are out within the schools right now, which is the most important place to be. So for English, actually, Kristen and Dennis have done a tremendous amount of work together, collaborating across their two departments this year at both the middle school and the high school levels. Kristen also, particularly with English, has spent a lot of time at the elementary school. So you can imagine, you've seen her involved in some of our Board of Education meetings, curriculum committee meetings with regard to K-3 literacy. She spent a lot of time also in 5th grade classrooms, because one of the things that we're trying to do is, again, strengthen that articulation in the continuum of literacy systemically preschool through grade 12. So we've worked really hard on both 5th grade and 5th to 6th and 8th to 9th grade alignment. They've worked again on strengthening literacy skills, not only in English classes, but in the children's social studies learning experiences. And there's been ongoing engagement in professional learning organization, NCTE, which is a National Council for Teachers of English. Student success, we have had one of our sixth graders placed in the Connecticut State Spelling Bee. We have the NCTE Writing Center, which is providing peer writing support and the Learning Commons up at the high school, which is a really cool place to be. And we have supported, again, student transition with the counseling department, actually, and the language arts teachers in the middle school for placement. We have the Summer Reading Ambassadors Program in the partnership with Darien Public Library. I will give a shout out to the Darien Public Library. They've done a wonderful job in collecting different series of books and summer reading recommendations for each of the grade levels that we've been able to communicate out for them, and we really appreciate them helping our children to be happy and joyful readers throughout the summer. And there have been a number of extracurricular and supplemental activities that have happened in the English department, whether it's through the National English Honor Society or through other clubs and activities. So social studies, again, some of this really bears repeating with Dennis Cabrera and the work with the English department. I also would like to mention something that he didn't place. There might be a typo on this slide because I don't see social studies. Oh, there we go. Something that he didn't talk about here that I think is really important to mention is the work that Dennis is doing with curriculum writing in his department to provide SIOP training, which is training that will support our students who are identified to receive multilingual language supports in classrooms. And you can imagine how challenging it might be for a newcomer who has limited English proficiency skills to be in a course at Darien High School in a content, departmental level course. And so one of the things that we need to do, and again, with limited staff that's identified as ML particular staff, is build the capacity of our teachers within the classroom to support those learners. And you can imagine, and I'm sure Shirley would agree, that that type of differentiation is actually beneficial for all learners. So something that Dennis is doing with Patricia Thalasinos and something that I'm helping them to build is a training that will be systemic through the department chairs to offer SIOP training to across the department so that we can grow the capacity in-house for that type of work. And I will, unless there are particular questions about English and social studies, I'll turn it over to Christian.
I do have some questions just on English, and I thank you for this presentation and also for I went on the website because I was trying to see the curriculum and there's a technical issue, just by the way, on the English webpage. When you click the link to get to what I think is supposed to be EduPlanet, it takes you to a login and password page, whereas the math link does work and brings you to the curriculum blueprint. So just for parents that might be interested in seeing this, especially as we start the new year, if we could just make sure that all the links actually really take you to that curriculum blueprint page, and I started going through it. It's really, it's great. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, is it mostly stage 1 that's shown in each department at this point?
Yeah, so one of the things that we mentioned before, but thank you, Robin, for raising this again, because it's a good reminder. The only part of the curriculum that school districts publish would be, not every district writes with UBD framework like we do. But even those who don't, they really just show kind of the big picture standards, essential questions, enduring understandings. Because the actual lesson plan, the level of the lesson plan is more unique to the district and to the school.
Okay.
And for obvious and maybe not so obvious reasons, we wouldn't want to be posting assessments online. So really, stage 1 is what in any public school is what that kind of content is what would be public.
Okay, so on that note then, what I, as a parent, would be looking for when I look at each of those pages would be, okay, what are the books that we're going to be reading in English 10 honors versus, English 9 regular? And just because we used to have on the website, examples of some of the texts that they would read, and now it is not listed anywhere. And so I understand what you're saying, that you wouldn't post what stage 2 or stage 3 resources would be, but it would be really helpful maybe even to just have something listed in that curriculum blueprint that would show parents, because I think that is something that's of interest to
Right.
parents.
I completely agree. And that that kind of transparency is really important. One of the things that we have talked about before at the board table is it would be impossible to be exhaustive and list every single text and resource. And we
Right.
also really trust the expertise of our staff to make those decisions that are most appropriate for the students before them. However, in stage one, you should see the more core mentor text. For example, again, to go back to our rapid fire texting and emailing last night, I know that there are specific texts listed, for example, in Spanish 3 and 3H for Gabriela Garcia Lorca, that's an author, and the exact text that would be used in that course. His text that he's written as an author. So there are examples of those core primary texts that are listed. And one of the things we've also talked about is that when the teachers are preparing their syllabus, something that the department chairs can also make a note of for the year, and we'll remind Kristen as well and Dennis, because they don't happen to be with us in this moment, is that is the level of detail that could also be on a course syllabus.
That's what I'm getting
Again,
at. Yeah. and-
not every single resource and not every single
Understood.
text,
Yeah.
but the primary resources.
And if that could be maybe even a handout or something at the open houses in the fall, for your kids' specific English class, that would be really helpful, I think, to parents, because a lot of times the open houses are so rushed that they don't really get into, here are just some examples of what we'll be reading. So I think that would be really helpful. But thank you for all this work.
You're welcome.
I would say, just in full transparency to that, not just a gloss over, there would need to be a wee discussion just about consistency even among departments and even within departments.
Right.
So I'll just recognize that needs to be part of that discussion.
Thank you.
Yeah, one of the things that we're really working on, even down to how we invite staff to engage in curriculum writing in the summer, is being really systemic and consistent in our messaging across the departments. We agree. Okay, the humanities, I guess now we're science.
Good morning. I'm happy to be here today. So I just touch base a little bit on our curriculum writing from the past year. We really focused on our middle school and ninth grade curriculum over the course of this past fiscal year, and we'll wrap those up. We had over 20 teachers across our department, 6 through 12, working on this curriculum on curriculum writing projects, and certainly they're looking forward to continue that work as we more focus towards our 10th and 11th grade classes and some of our new courses that we have implemented over the past couple of years. So you'll see that in our curriculum slides that Dr. Fettigan went over. When we think about sort of the achievements of our staff and our department over the course of the year in terms of professional learning, I'm very proud of the work that our 6 through 12 department has done on integrating performance-based assessments. Those are content-based assessments that have roots in our VOG competencies. So, for example, in the middle school, we have teachers that are really focused on utilizing driving question boards to engage students in their own curiosity. And those driving question boards provide teachers with questions that help frame subsequent lessons and allow students to get to the phenomena at the end of our unit where they're asked to apply some of that learning. And it really gives them an opportunity to see how their own interests are playing a role in that instructional path for our middle school units. At the high school, we have a wide variety of performance-based assessments that were implemented throughout the year. Just this year, or this semester, we have a human activity as a driver of evolution performance-based assessment in our biology 300 level, a patient-facing science performance assessment where our honors level biology students were crafting meaningful messages about mitotic disorders. So really giving an opportunity for students to show their understanding of the science, but doing it in an empathetic way so their performance is, they were going to provide a brochure that could go into a doctor's office and explain a specific mitotic disorder to a family or to somebody who had just been diagnosed. In our chemistry classes, they did a calorimetry escape room where they really had to show a sequence of understanding in terms of chemistry investigations and looking at how to put their answers in the correct format in order to get to the next room, so to speak. So we have a wide variety of interests and a wide variety of opportunities for our students to apply their understanding. Another piece that we focused on this year was really looking at the question types and question design that are aligned to the 8th and 11th grade NGSS assessment. So what we found is our students get tripped up a little bit about with the types of questions that are found in those assessments. So sometimes we ask them to put things into a explanation when the same content might be put into chronological order in the actual assessment. So we've looked at some of those typologies and then are integrating those into our assessments in the classroom. And then we spent quite a bit of time looking at student work protocols and how we can utilize student work to get in a greater insight into learning. And so what's happening in the classroom in terms of teaching and not necessarily what the teacher is doing in the classroom. So looking to align instruction across our content areas. Our students, again, just a brief overview of some of our successes. Our ASR program is still running strong. We had 45 students at the CT STEM Fair, as well as our recent ASR senior seminar, where all students presented their progress, and then our 14 seniors presented their final projects after 3 years of focus on their independent research projects there. We had record participation in the Science Olympiad this year, and then 9 teams participating in our teams competition, and 7 out of those 9 teams qualified or met the qualifying benchmark for the national competition that happens in the end of June. So very rarely do we send our students, or is there interest in going to those national competitions, but we did meet those benchmarks. I would say this was a banner year in terms of community involvement for our department. Throughout the year, we have bi-monthly student lectures at the Darien Library called Science in the Stacks, where students are from our National Honors, their Science National Honor Society, are highlighting their independent interests and their curiosity outside of our classroom. So those are all independent research lectures that students are producing in a variety of topics. We had a department-wide visit to the Great Island in November on maybe the best day of the entire year to be walking around out there. So we got a chance to engage a little bit with the history of the island and start to think about how we as science teachers may be able to utilize the resources in the islands as those resources become available, and we can think about using those. And then again, highlight the STEM outreach with our Tech Ed National Honor Society. We had over 60 students, both in the fall semester and the spring semester, visit our elementary schools. The fall was grades 2 and 4, and the spring was grades 3 and 5. And so our high school students engaged with teaching a engineering lesson to our elementary school students. And just to see the engagement between the two, but almost more exciting is to see the high school students get back into the elementary school and see their old teachers and see their old sort of haunting grounds. It's just a great way to make those connections and sort of come full circle for our high school students to be back in their elementary schools. So lots to celebrate, and certainly just an overview, but very proud of what we've been able to accomplish this year.
Thanks, Christian. Science question? Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask, I know we talked about this in the past, but I wanted to ask where we were at in terms of looking at the gap between freshman regular biology and freshman honors biology.
So when I came, there was a much larger gap in terms of the material that the honors biology class covered. Both 9th grade biology classes have gone through a full revamp of stage 1 goals and the assessments that are aligned with that. The honors biology class does a much better job at covering the standards that our students are being held to, and it aligns more, the greater alignment across the entire year with our 300 level class. And where we continue to see that honors level work is we've done a lot of thinking around like, what does honors level work look like? And we've focused more on the honors level thinking. So application of the content to a variety of contexts as opposed to honors level workload, where we're just jamming biological content down the throats of our students. So I think we see to a much higher degree, our ninth grade students are focused on honors level thinking in our biology class, meaning they're going much more deeper in terms of the understanding of the core concepts that our standards or state standards lay out, as opposed to trying to do all of our body systems and all of the core standards within the course of a year.
So it sounds to me like you're not planning on revisiting or making any changes between the two courses. Is that correct?
I think we've made significant changes to make those more aligned in terms of the content that the students are experiencing over the course of the year.
So I would be interested then, because I would say that the perspective from the community is that there's still a very, very large gap between the two of them. You know, just speaking plainly and generally, the honors is often too hard and 300 is too easy. And there's not 350 class that, so I'd be curious if you don't have plans to revisit this. I'd love to see the numbers of students that started in honors and dropped out. I'd love to see that over the past couple of years, because I'm still hearing a lot about how truly difficult honors biology is, and then how the 300 level is, that there's not a place for the middle there. So I think it would be interesting to see the data, at least on what the student performance is and what the dropout rate is.
Yeah, I'm happy to get specific data. I don't have that right in front of me, but anecdotally, I can say that the number of students that drop down from our 400 level class over the course of time has decreased drastically. Off the top of my head, I can say between 5 and 10 students, where when I started 7 or 8 years ago, we had as many as 25 to 30 students drop. So in terms of drop rate, the attrition rate is very low over the course of the year. But I certainly can get that data. I have it for the past 5 years, so I'm happy to provide that.
It would be great to see what students' performance is as well. Even the kids that stay in there, like, are they being successful or are they struggling?
With that drop rate, I mean, the improvement in the drop rate, is that a result of making the class easier or better instruction, better placement? Like, I guess some insight into that. I would hope it's not just making the class easier just so that the kids can not drop out.
I mean, like, that's sort of, I guess I wouldn't consider the fact that we've made the class easier. I guess those are the two opposing views that we've just seen. Like, on one hand, the class is really hard, and then are we seeing a lower drop rate because of the class being easier?
I would take Katie's view not to be different. I would take it to be that she was saying, where's the opportunity for the middle? So there's probably still are people who are doing great, but there's probably kids who are forced into the higher class that should be somewhere in the middle because 300 is too easy and 400 is too hard.
I can't speak to students being forced into a class, but I'm happy to provide the data in terms of achievement and where we stand in terms of student drops and what that looks like.
And some of the work to the curriculum for biology and biology honors is very recent. So I think one of the things would be important for us to do is go back to the actual, right, to the staff and see how have things gone this year. And to kind of, we can circle back on some of the questions that you've asked.
Yeah, thank you. And to that point, Amy, I thank you for recognizing that it's interesting to look at too, especially when there's a change in curriculum, when there's a change in delivery. I think it's interesting to note too how that's being applied across sections too. Are all teachers teaching it in the same way? Are certain teachers So I think that might be interesting to not just look at, to kind of aggregate and disaggregate that data.
Yeah, and that is something we look at. Implementation is very important. And again, that's how we connect curriculum to instructional practice, to assessment, professional learning.
Just a follow-up on that. I agree on the honors classes and also like honors chemistry, honors biology, just to make sure that instructionally between differing sections, different teachers, that the teachers, I have heard that some teachers will have, a Google Notes document about what was covered in class or something that kids could use as a resource, whereas if you're in a different section with a different teacher, they don't offer that. And, if you're sick and you can't have access to a resource about the notes or something that was covered in class, and a teacher will say, we'll get it from another student. But if you don't really have a good relationship with other students or you don't know them very well, that's a very awkward situation for a class, and it makes it very teacher dependent. And so I think this is something, it would really be helpful to have more consistency and have that dialogue with each of the teachers so that resources are provided across all sections of a particular, if it's honors chem, honors biology, et cetera, because I have heard this over the years, and that's an issue that can really affect students' success in a class.
And that sort of goes to the eco track process, right? In terms of that consistency of, you said resources, whatever it is, like what they're using in terms of textbooks, but also all those intangibles. I think all that consistency is really critical because to your point, like then some students have an advantage over others just by virtue of which classroom they're in.
Or
which teacher
we
they're
don't
in.
have textbooks anymore in many different kinds of courses, and it's all subject to teacher discretion, which resources they're using. And so in the absence of having a textbook at home that you can go back to try to teach yourself if you're sick or something, this is an issue that I think can be a problem for students now that we have so many virtual and teacher-made curriculum that is very, it's not like you just have a textbook. So I think that's something we should think about.
And that's why it's so important, again, that we have this curriculum writing and revision plan and that we have EduPlanet, because the resources that you're talking about would be resources that, for example, would appear in stage 2. So that teachers can, and because the curriculum is live, right, it's not just that we finish it and it's done forever. As teachers are innovating, which we want them to do, they're able, so there's a fine line between being exactly consistent across the board and also wanting teachers to respond to the kids before them and also wanting teachers to innovate, because that's how you improve practice. And one of the things that we can do with the use of EduPlanet is ensure that teachers have the standard that's expected across curricular areas, and so that they can also, when we're innovating, share ideas and share their thinking. Instead of, back in the day, you would have your curriculum, you'd have a textbook in a room and everybody is implementing it however they choose, or you have curriculum in a binder. This makes the curriculum much more alive. And so one of the things that we continue to do is have curriculum writing teams revisit the revisions together. And one of the things I didn't mention before is that the department chairs are working very hard to ensure that there's a special educator at the table that is working on writing the curriculum. Not so much stage 1, because stage 1 is a very general, again, overview, and it's really about the standards and essential questions, but certainly stage 2 and stage 3. And we want the staff to be able to have resources so that the student experience is supported appropriately across sections.
So is there like a next phase of the EduPlanet rollout where students now have access into that system where they can grab resources irrespective of who their teacher is?
So the student view of that is more like Google Classroom. So what teachers prepare, EduPlanet is really, it's the adult facing piece. It's not really student friendly. It's around the standards, it's assessments, it's lesson planning. But teachers they have Google Classrooms where they would put the resources that they share across their sections.
So that would be like if you're in biology 400 and there's 3 different teachers, you have access to the resources that all of the teachers are providing?
No, you have, each teacher has a Google Classroom. However, work that we do and continue to do and will continue to do in the department is to ensure that collaboration. And again, this is why the professional learning time and PLC time is so important, because that's the time that teachers use to talk again about resources, challenges that they have, meeting student needs, and different resources that are helping them meet with success with different learner types.
That almost seems as important as the parent facing stuff is. It's great that the parents know what it is, but if it says no bearing on the students, who cares?
Absolutely. And so that's one of the things that we're advocating for with, again, professional learning time and how we use the professional learning time. Thank you for pointing that out.
I would just add, I know that the conversation took a bit of a different direction, but Dr. Adley and I have talked about this multiple times. But at the university and the graduate level, I think that they do a really, really good job at making resources available to students, and especially at working together across sections for classes. I mean, I think a lot of times this is very common in the quant classes in particular, but in terms of, teachers pre-recording and sharing videos so that students come, which watch this 10-minute video before class so that you come with like a basic understanding, or a recording of a lecture or a certain part. And Amy, I could not agree with you more about how important it is for a teacher to be in front of their students and having that discussion and that interaction. And I know that you guys try to make the learning very interactive too, so it's not just lecturing. But for students, especially at those really high level classes where we are asking a significant rigor, I think that it would be a great resource for the students to be able, and I mean, again, this is the students who want to put the time in to rewatching that lecture, to making sure that they're having the understanding, for there to be that consistency. And, to me, I think that it like, once we got it up and running, it wouldn't be a big ask of the teachers, right? Like they could pre-record and share, they could record their lecture in the class. I think that would be a boon to our students to be able to have that as a review. And to Robin's point too, one of the culture issues we have in Darien is that students are afraid to miss a day. Because you can't miss a day because you're behind, and how difficult it is to catch up, and being able to provide them, again, the resources, they have to put the work in, I think could be a really good thing. So I'd love to see, any kind of percolating or feedback or discussion that you guys might have about how we might be able to develop that at DHS in particular.
There's a lot of things that we could go on for that, but we'll go on to the next one.
Okay, next is world language. And I think if we just advance the slide for Scott, there we go.
Thank you.
One
back.
back.
Great, thank you. Curriculum-wise, colleagues have been deeply engaged in a lot of curriculum work this year, from grade kindergarten through 12, and from levels 1 all the way through AP. And we're very excited this year that we have the focus on the K-12 piece with that vertical alignment and strengthening smooth transitions between the schools. Our K-5 folks are especially excited to work on refining the curriculum, enhancing those 6 levels of Spanish. And they're actually excited to get to work, that cohort, the day after school gets out. So that's very exciting. And the majority of our proposed projects for curriculum in our department are probably going to take place this summer. Our teachers are really excited to collaborate and get to work on those already this summer. So that's wonderful. In terms of achievements, teachers are collaborating more than ever, sharing high impact instructional strategies and integrating innovative tools like Smashdodle, video, podcasting, and Note to enrich the language learning in the classroom. Thanks to folks like Tim and our library media specialists. They're so excited to collaborate with us and enhance that experience for them. We're incredibly proud of our students' accomplishments. For this first time, we established National Language Honor Societies, as you know, in French, Latin, Mandarin, and Spanish. We held those ceremonies earlier this spring to recognize our seniors with their tassels, or their cords, rather, and also welcome in new inductees to the programs. We have to date, so far, pending a few more results, 42% of our senior class earning the seal of biliteracy this year in 6 different languages, including German and Russian, which is an outstanding testament to our students' commitment to global competence. And it's not on the slide, but 95% of our seniors actually earned a 3 or above on language APs, which is wonderful because, as we mentioned before, that's another way that they can earn the seal. And it is also a barometer of their proficiency in these languages. So that is fantastic. And then outside the classroom, just like our colleagues in other departments expressed, our students are all over the elementary schools where a lot of our honor society students are doing their service hours and getting to get back into their classrooms with their former kindergarten teachers. And they're doing lots of other community service hours as required by the National Honor Societies by tutoring fellow students in all grades, as well as volunteering with organizations like New Covenant Center and Building One Community. And we're excited about what's ahead. We have 2 trips proposed, as you know, for the spring next year to France and Spain. And we're excited to continue to expand our students' cultural and linguistic horizons that way. So, any questions?
Go ahead.
This is maybe more of a broad kind of a thing. First of all, I think all of these departmental achievement slides are so amazing. And I would love, and in kind of in the spirit of our data dashboard and strategic plan, to have some level of summary of some of these achievements that the students have made in each department, and whether that's on the website or somewhere that we can kind of publicize all of the great things that are happening across all of these areas would really, really be great. And then another kind of, as I've seen these, you know, a lot of the honor society students are the ones that are getting the opportunities to do different service or community hours, kinds of mentoring things. It would be nice if perhaps, and this is also kind of aligned with vision of the graduate, if our other students in the high school, not just the ones that are in the honor society, also are given some kind of opportunities systemically as part of our curriculum to participate in community or service kinds of things, not just the honor society students, because I think all students in our community would benefit from that. And that's an important part of learning and being empathetic and showing leadership that I think it would be wonderful to see.
I agree with that. And we've heard a couple times of, high school students going back into the elementary schools. And if we could do some sort of, I don't know, I would love to increase the service in our students, but I don't know.
I feel like I read a curriculum document last night that involved students going out into the community as a part of the regular curriculum in one of our world language classes. Is that true, Scott?
They do that in some of the AP classes
Mhm.
as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know there are many field trips as well where students were able to go, and like there was a trip to Chinatown with the Mandarin students, so they get to actually use their skills.
So I was
real
referring to what you
situations.
were saying though, as far as kids going out into the community and using their skills to perform good for others. But this is, I really appreciate the board's recognition of that, because again, this is where we talk about content and skill, and that is incredibly important, but the standards are like the floor, not the
Right.
ceiling. So when we think about application and actually, again, critical thinking and demonstrating those other dispositions that are incredibly important, life after DHS, that is important, and it is something that we'll continue to look to. There are lots of extracurricular activities aside from National Honor Societies for children to have those opportunities. But I suspect that you will see as a part of our work, I have a meeting later this morning with actually some of our secondary staff. Tim will actually be there as well for Vision of the Graduate, and you'll see some of those things come out in that work. And again, not just high school, that really should be a trajectory
Right.
preschool through grade 12. Our littles can do a lot within their community as well.
The kids, I mean, particularly as they get up through the grade levels, excel and a lot of the stuff. One of the other areas of opportunity, and I only mentioned because I know I've had different discussions with different people around the table about it. We've had a lot of opportunities of expansion for travel, but also expansion for travel for community related experiences, service related experiences in different countries, would be a wonderful wee addition to the travel experiences for our kids. I mean, I know we've had that discussion actually, so, but anyway, just.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, Mr. Darren.
Good morning. Thank you for having me here this morning. On the curricular side of things for career and technical education, we've had a very productive year. We've gained momentum, and our teachers are excited about writing curriculum now and reflecting on the classes that they work in and how to improve upon those. We are a little more ahead in the middle school only because we have about one teacher per class and only a couple classes there. At the high school level, we have about 23 classes and a handful of writers. However, we have about 50% of our stage 1 completed just this year. And throughout the summer, we're going to continue on that progress. And summer and into the fall, we will continue on our stage 2 progress on those courses at the high school level. And some of our focus there will be some of the authentic learning experiences and performance tasks and performance task assessments and standards alignment. Some of the departmental achievements, we have a lot to be proud of this year, and we just have a couple of highlights that I was able to fit on this slide. So professional learning side of things, we had a lot of professional development within our department, off-site learning opportunities for teachers to attend their professional organization conferences. We've had teachers kind of want to learn about electronics to better understand what they're teaching in their class. So they've took some coursework in that. We've done some career and work experiences put on by the Department of Labor just to get career connections with our curriculum. And we had some teachers attend the UConn Teaching and Learning with Technology Conference. We applied for the Perkins 5 grant and were awarded that grant this year, which supports career and technical education programs. And it has also done a really great job, as Dr. Alley was just mentioning, to support transportation needs for our students in the community. For instance, we've had our sports marketing club. We had guest speakers come in and we were able to take them on bus to NBC Sports right here in Stamford to give them a real experience of what people do in this actual field. They recently just took a marketing field trip to the Sono collection and did a scavenger hunt there to see, search for different types of products there and how they were marketed. We also, as part of those authentic learning opportunities, we have our DIY and woodworking classes, fixing or creating items for clients. And when we say clients, that might mean adults in the building. We might have a DIY class, change oil for a teacher in the building itself, which makes it real. It's not just a mock car where you're trying things. It's someone's actual vehicle and it has to be done right. And you provide a report for them. So it's an authentic experience when they have to do something like that. Student successes. DECA this year has reached 190 members. It is the largest in the state. That is our business club. 120 of those students competed at the state level, and 34 of them attended the international level in Florida. And that means the 34 who attended were students who placed at the state level, because you have to get to either, I think, first, second, or third in order to compete at that international level. Our programming club had a number of competitions, PICO CTF, which is Capture the Flag. They did CyberQuest and CodeQuest competitions at Lockheed Martin. The TSA organization, which is our technology student organization, which is the sister club to DECA, but on the technology and engineering side of things. And they took home 7 trophies at the state competition at Killingly High School this year. Community and student engagement. We have a new sports marketing club this year, and they started an Instagram page, which really just promotes sports at the high school level. And they have a NFL football signed by Travis Kelce that they are going to donate to one of their followers when they reach 1,000 followers. I just looked this morning, they're at 990. So there's about 10 people in this room that might be able to follow the DHS sports marketing, and maybe you could be the lucky winner of a signed Travis Kelce football. So they've done a great job with that. The woodworking class this year, they created cedar benches for the Serenity Garden project that will be in the courtyard probably in the next fall, something that we're working on collaboratively. The NTH STEM outreach along with the Science National Honor Society, as Christian mentioned, we did our outreach program at the elementary schools. And they also had another successful year of the Curiosity and Experiment Night, where we brought in elementary and middle school students down to our cafeteria one evening, and they did a lot of engineering and STEM activities and had a really great time. And we also, the business and entrepreneurship class has a Shark Tank Live event where they use the auditorium and the video wall, and we bring in community members to be our quote unquote sharks to kind of grill the kids on why they should invest in their club or not. And that was another successful thing that we had this year. So we had a really successful year, and we're proud of all the things that we've accomplished.
I just want to say the very first conversation when I arrived to district that I had with Greg was about the Perkins grant. You know, what, have we ever thought of that? Why don't we have that? And he jumped on that immediately. And it's amazing the technology he's been able to bring into the system and how the technology is already being used to the benefit of our students and staff. So thank you, Greg, for, above and beyond in your leadership in that area, and for bringing those resources to our kids. And I look forward to many years of the Perkins Grant. And part of that grant will, I think, support our efforts to build more career pathways. That's definitely something we need to position. Greg and I have talked about this, and we'll continue to, of course, with the other department chairs as well, but be thinking about career pathways for children. And again, that's part of our vision of the graduate work. So how do we make that more explicit?
And Greg, I know this department's kind of been growing throughout, the past few years. Are you still seeing that growth? Are you still increased
It
interest?
fluctuates from year to year. We had a really big year this year and it kind of leveled off for next year. So we'll have to kind of see, but hopefully with things like Perkins Grant and funding things, we could help kind of build programs and look for some new programming.
Okay, thanks. Good.
This is great. I love the growth that we're seeing in the awards and how the students are doing. One question or something that STEM, encouraging and growing our programs in STEM. On our website, I know right now it seems that it's very departmentalized in terms of like math, science, the career, like technology and engineering courses are all kind of listed by department. But I think it would be really great on the website potentially to have something that's really more of a STEM page or STEAM page that kind of puts together, and again, this is just highlights of everything that we're doing across all those areas to really emphasize what we're doing as a district to encourage students and, the accomplishments that we're seeing in the STEM area, because otherwise you really would have to go to each different department. And I think they all really kind of work together in many ways, but it's a great kind of testament to everything as a district that we've been able to do.
Yeah, from science, Christian and so on, expanding all these opportunities, I would say down the line, since I can't say it, but I have said it publicly anyway, and I've said it in documentations, family consumer science, those facilities need to be looked at as the next level of the high school to expand some of these opportunities for the kids. Not just that area, but just in all of the areas in the STEM. That would be one of the next things in the high school that I would encourage the board to look at.
I just really wanted to give your department some recognition. I know my son chooses all of his electives in your department, and I think that the culture that you have created as well is really one to be celebrated. They have so much fun. If anyone's not aware with the tech ed barbecues and the picnics and the applicable skills that the kids make and the things that come out of that, I think are so exciting. And I know that the art department has long been celebrated at Darien as being a safe place for kids to be creative and to learn skills. And I really think that the tech ed department is like the new upcomer on that. And I'd love to see, I agree with all of my colleagues. I love hearing about these accomplishments. I wish we could do that every meeting. But I wonder if you have considered having, a maker fair or maybe partnering with a section like with the art department, because I would love to see the things that the kids are coming out of. And, how amazing would it be if in the parking lot we had, kids demonstrating cars and, filling up people's windshield wipers, whatever it is, because these are real skills. And I think it's amazing what these kids can do, especially maybe in a town like Darien where we outsource a lot of those skills.
So I was recently in one of the classes within the department, and my comment to the kids was, I need to audit some of these classes myself because I'm paying somebody to come in and do all of these things. And the kids are very well aware of the skills that they're coming out of their experiences with. But Greg and I have had this conversation because recently there was a fair in the school, and I was talking with some students. There must have been 4 or 5 of them, and they built their own boat. And there was video of them. I saw it, it was seaworthy. They were out on it. And one of the things that Greg and I talked about was, how do we make that more visible? So initially, one of the things we talked about is most certainly prioritizing CTE as a Board of Education curriculum agenda focus area for the year ahead. And we talked about probably doing that in the spring so that we can accompany it with some type of fair like you're talking about when the kids have completed their project. There are some kids that are year over year working on their project. So it would be a great way to recognize and make more public. A lot of times, and I'll just plug this for parents who are listening, a lot of times children will question which courses they take because of how courses are weighted. It is incredibly important for us to recognize that we should be encouraging our students to take a wide variety of courses that grow them in different ways. That is a essential part of experience in high school for our children to have. And some of the kids' most important, exciting, and included feelings happen in these other subject areas and some of the most important learning. So thank you for recognizing that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so I have a visual performing arts because as you know, spring is a very busy time of year for visual performing arts. Once again, Darien has been listed as a best community in music education. We have our students performing throughout the district and beyond, and as well as state and regional festivals. We've had the West Point Band come and work with our students recently, and our students are also, of course, preparing their own compositions for the Young Composers Concert. We now have our middle school art at the Darien Nature Center. That's the most recent display. We have students that are receiving the Scholastic Art Awards again, and students who have had their pieces featured in I Create 2025 exhibition. Everybody knows how tremendously talented our students who are involved in theater are. And Theater 308 has received 6 awards at the Halo. Halo Awards, including Best Classical Musical for Les Mis and 2 awards for the Sondheim Awards. I happened to be sitting next to the person from the Halo Awards. I did not realize that at first at Les Mis the first night. And she was sitting alone. So I said, oh, what brings you here? And she mentioned to me that she was here for the Halo Awards. So she was furiously taking notes and obviously very impressed with what she saw. I agree, we continue to broadcast and celebrate the visual and performing arts departments as we should do with all of our departments. We have very talented students, and I'm happy to respond to any questions. And because Colleen is not here, if there's something I can't answer, we can get an answer from her directly. Okay. All right. Library media.
Thank you. Good morning. As I look around the room, actually, one of the things I love is knowing that the librarians are working quietly on the side to support all these other departments. So I heard the word about DECA, and the high school librarians supporting DECA, and I think it's Scott, and I know they're supporting podcasting, both at the middle school and the high school, and things like Statista for the databases, the math, and some of the science resources. So our librarians have a touch on everyone, and that's one of the things I love about working with them. They're quiet generally, and so you don't hear a lot, but here we go. So as far as curriculum work this year, the elementary librarians pulled together with me, and we have started some work in that front that's new and refreshing for them. The short of it is, at this point, we have outlined a course work plan for grades K through 5, all 5 grades, as well as a course description for that, and we've started the stage 1 work in kindergarten. That work has started now, and I anticipate it continuing a bit in the summer and more heavily in the fall. Beyond that, when I look at sort of some of our accomplishments, our librarians are offering professional learning to the staff. So things such as artificial intelligence has been presented by myself, also some of the high school librarians, to both the English department and the social studies department. But they were also pleased this year to have the opportunity to go to Castle's, Connecticut's Association of School Librarians Conference, where we learned more about things such as integrating makerspace activities and leading within schools, and genreification, which is these fancy words that only librarians make up. But these are tasks that are underway. So things like genreification is happening at the high school right now. So the high school worked, for example, on a reshelving project this year, and they're relabeling books to support print readership. And the secondary librarians are reporting that some of those efforts are starting to pay off. The back of the napkin numbers are something like 3% higher print readership over last year. So I think that's working for them. I think we do need to acknowledge the 3 elementary librarians that are under renovation and construction. They are excited for the outcome of the project, but it's a heavy lift getting there. So, I appreciate their work. I was there just in both at Holmes and over at Hindley the other day, looking at the movers moving their boxes of books for them. So that's well underway. The high school received a wonderful gift this year, and they've been eagerly purchasing some additional ebooks and physical books in support of that. And book talking has been a quite big initiative this year, both at the middle school and the high school. So I love the idea of book talks and really encouraging that readership within our students. So I think I'll pause there, and I'm sure I'll think of something I didn't mention, but hear what you have.
And then, so just on the big picture, we can just advance the slide one more time. These are certainly not comprehensive, but some professional learning priorities that connect to some of the things that we've talked about throughout the year. For art and music, the curriculum alignment and the authentic integration of arts and technology. And one of the things that Colleen and I will be doing is also looking at how different courses might fall under the humanities credit. As we know, there are graduation requirements, what might be a STEM credit with the arts and music classes, because that's how students kind of vote with their feet, as Ellen will say, and choose their courses. And we want to make sure that we're providing a wider access to kids and not limiting. Play-based learning for ELP and K will continue with the scenario development and implementation. K-3 literacy will obviously be our focus at the elementary level with 4 or 5 for writing and grammar, actually 4 through 8. We'll talk about restorative practices in the year ahead per legislation. Mathematics will have a focus on AI integration, thinking classroom practices, which I recognize, I think we need to make more clear to probably to the board and the public what that means when we talk about thinking classroom practices. So you can look forward to that in the year ahead. World languages, the listening and speaking instructional strategies, exploration of engaging and effective web-based learning resources, including AI. Next slide, we talk about science. One of the things I know Christian is working hard with the department with is aligning the assessment practices. And again, using consistent languages that our students would experience, for example, on the NGSS, so that sometimes it's not a gap in the content, it's more how it's presented and how we're asking them to show what they know. English, the 612 literacy practices. And again, we will come forward to the board in the year ahead. Kristen Colonies knows she's on deck. We have some work to do with aligning what's happening at the elementary level to the secondary, not only with regard to curriculum, but also instructional practices and looking at different groups of students and how they're performing. Technology, again, with career alignment, but also curriculum alignment, but career connections. And again, thinking about establishing curriculum pathways for our students and making that more explicit through curriculum writing and revision. So those are just some of the big picture items. Some of the things we'll be looking forward to coming back to the board in the year ahead. And I just want to thank our department chairs and our coordinators and our directors who are here and who are not here, because this is just a sum of what has been accomplished in the last year. And it's really their steadfast leadership, the passion that they each bring to each of their departments, the leadership and encouragement they have for their staff, and the expectations they hold, not only for students, but for our staff as well, that really bring these great results and experiences. And we're looking forward to strengthening our practice together in the year ahead.
Thank you. I mean, I think it's very clear that we are not static in what we do. So I appreciate all of the hard work. And I just want to make sure that we're being cognizant that, you know, the loads that we're putting on our teachers is not too extensive. So that, you know, it's a lot.
Just one, just on the subject of AI, and I see that in English and math, that it's highlighted for professional development, but for English, obviously, the supporting academic integrity, and I just kind of broadly would love to see some kind of professional development and focus on how all of the different departments might allow our students to utilize, and teachers to utilize AI effectively so that they can get, you know, because it will be the pathway of the future for in careers and everything else. And so we need to help our students and teachers to make use of that, but to do it with integrity and kind of ways and what tools to use, et cetera. So I think to the extent that we can kind of help think about that with our teachers and
We
staff.
agree. And the district technology team has actually prepared some documents to provide guidance. So that will be a part of professional learning, how we support staff in understanding that guidance and how to leverage AI, because we should be leveraging that as a tool. And even if you didn't see it here, it doesn't mean it's not happening. There's certainly work that's happening not only in the social studies department, but even in visual and performing arts. You have issues with AI and academic integrity and performance and all those things. So it is across departments that we're approaching that concept.
I think the board also, the other last board meeting identified it for a curriculum meeting.
Yeah.
AI.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that next year for sure.
It's on the list on line 95.
Yes, I would also like to recognize Amy and the team. You don't have this level of discourse, programming experiences. It also comes with some accountability for all of us, right? But you don't have it without their leadership. It just won't happen. The level of discourse you're having and what you're asking and what we're asking and what you're seeing, it may be a short-term thing, right? But it'll have long-term impacts if you didn't have these positions and leadership that they, so that's just like to recognize that.
Thank you. Oh, good.
Yes, thank you all so much for being here. I wish we could have all day to talk about this. Amy, I did just want to come back to two quick things. I'd love to, in the future, be able to have a bit more of a robust conversation about UBD and UB.
And
L.
UDL.
Yeah, I'd love to be able to get into that a little bit more. And then I also just wanted to ask one technical question regarding EduPlanet. Do we have backups to that? Are we actually we're using that as our resource to write curriculum? If something were to happen with that platform or resource, do we have backups? Just thinking from a technical standpoint.
Most of the departments, staff drafts first in a Google Doc.
Okay,
So yeah, typically there would be access to those pieces.
great.
Those 2 pages that you see, 1 to 2 pages on the blueprint, we see behind the scenes about 150 pages. We save that on a PDF within our departments and it's accessible.
I'll also check, we have a backup that every 24 hours is running it and saving, so.
But as far as maintaining that platform, again, the benefit of that is that it's accessible for everyone across the system.
I wasn't questioning its use. I
Okay.
was more just, I was more, no, I was more just thinking like if they were to go out of business or if there was some sort of like catastrophe, there's so much great work
And
that's gone
I
into that.
will say you'll hear from me if I'm not happy with a vendor we're using. When I text Kelsey Jascott, who's our rep, she responds to me within 2 minutes. You know, I asked her the other day to put a different set of standards up. She was immediately on. I published some documents in world language and I didn't see it within 30 seconds. And she said to me, Amy, give it a minute and refresh your screen. That we're getting that kind of responsive customer service support, which is great.
All right.
She's one of your favorites.
All right, moving on to public comment.
If anyone in person or online would like to participate in public comment, please come up to the podium or use the raised hand icon and wait to be recognized. Once recognized, please state your name and address for the record and note that you will have up to 3 minutes to comment. Please note the time with the chair. There are no raised hands.
All right, motion to adjourn.
Thank you all for your
Thank you,
questions
everybody.
today.
Have a great summer.